Cool. Right. See you at the end, Stephen. Thanks.
Amazing. All right. Thanks so much for the intro. And I'm so happy to be speaking to everyone here. Thanks so much for attending. So, my name is Stephen. I'm a customer success manager at HubSpot. What that means is I work with about 150 clients, especially in the Benelux, anything from small business to medium sized businesses to very large enterprise businesses. And I'm a marketing consultant. I consult in sales as well, but marketing, digital marketing is really what my background is and what I'm qualified to talk about most of all. So that's what I want to do today as well. So today we'll be talking specifically about lead nurturing. And to go over the agenda for today, we're going to look at what is lead nurturing, what is marketing automation, and how do I play a part in each other. We're looking at ways to automate and nurture leads. It's about when to nurture leads, because this is something I think that is so often neglected, is the timing of nurturing. When do you send what email, and what is the purpose and intent of your email strategies? I just want to go over a bit of brainstorming workflow logic. So when we're looking at these kind of workflows, what do you want to think about? What is the intentionality behind it? But also, what is the goal of a specific workflow? And I just want to leave you with a few examples so that I haven't just given you a lot of theory, but there's also a few actionable takeaways that you can set up yourself. Like Claire said, there is the Q&A, so please, if anything pops up during any of it, pop it in the Q&A. Don't hold on to your questions till the very end, because you might forget them, something else might come up. So once there's something, just pop it in there and we'll get to all of them at the end. So starting off with, what is lead nurturing? So nurturing really is all about building relationships and providing value. Simply put, lead nurturing is a system that allows you to engage with an early stage client or an early stage prospect in order to pre-qualify them before handing them over to your sales team. Lead nurturing is making sure that you're getting people ready to talk to your sales team, and you're getting the right people ready to talk to your sales team when they are ready to do so. Now, why is this important? Well, in most cases, only a small percentage of your inbound leads will be ready to make an immediate purchase. Inbound is casting a really, really wide net, and it's about seeing who finds this interesting. And usually with inbound marketing, you're not specifically targeting one group, you're casting out a net and you're seeing what sticks. Now, what this means is if you're only looking at people that are ready to make an immediate purchase, there's a really, really large part of customers that might not be ready to make a purchase immediately, but could be ready to do so in the future. If you're not doing lead nurturing, you're leaving around 90% of your inbound leads on the table. I don't know about you, but I can't afford to lose 90% of leads. So you could be missing out on serious revenue if you're not partaking in effective lead nurturing. Now, to have a look, lead nurturing is not the same as email blasting. So this here is a screenshot that I got from a colleague's email inbox with all content related to Valentine's Day. And this is not nurturing, right? This is spamming emails to a person because you have some kind of offer, and it doesn't matter if they're interested in it or if it's the right time or if they've shown any indicators. Email enables you to establish a relationship with your prospects. It allows you to stay on top of mind. And yes, you can use it to offer discounts and promotions as the meteor season arrives. However, if we look at one-time promotional emails, it can be a really big turnoff because you're prompting them to form a negative opinion of your brand and maybe unsubscribe from your list. If it's just about pushing a promotion to people that haven't been in touch with you in a long time, chances are they don't really want to hear from you at that point in time. Now, my inbox doesn't look too different from that, especially when Black Friday comes up again, and I'm sure neither does yours or your prospects. It's a competitive email space that we're dealing with. And this contact, while it is timely, it may not be relevant to me. Lead nurturing, on the other hand, introduces a connected series of useful emails. Now, I'll repeat that. It's a connected series of useful emails with purpose and relevant content. So in this context, lead nurturing offers more advantage than just one individual email blast. Now, there's a couple of fundamental truths that you want to know about lead nurturing. Lead nurturing is not just about your company. And I like to make the comparison about that guy that you meet at a bar that will not stop talking about himself, right? We get bored really quickly. We don't want to continue talking to that person that just has story after story about themselves, and you don't really want to do that. It's no different with companies. If you're only talking about this is what our company has done, etc., that might not be relevant. It should also not be a sales pitch. I mean, depending on the stage of the journey, where are they at? Your prospect very likely is not ready for a sales pitch and they'll lose interest. If you pitch before someone's ready to hear that, they will very likely lose interest in what you have to say or what your product is, no matter if it's a good fit now or in the future. Then finally, it shouldn't be left on autopilot. I see this very often as well. People have made their start with lead nurturing. You have a couple of these flows set up and then you leave it running. That's not how it works, unfortunately. You need to constantly review your nurturing flows to make sure that you are still sending the right thing to the right people. You need to A/B test. You need to change the flow, the timing, and we'll get back into all of that, but it is a work in process and it will always be. So what should it be? It should be customer centric. You want your customer to feel empowered by your business. And what this usually means is, what does your customer want and what do they need from you? Is that a pitch about you, or is it some kind of content that they're looking for that will help educate them? Because really, very often, the best ways of doing inbound and then nurturing work with providing helpful content. You start adding value before you ask them for anything. Educate. Someone comes in because they have some kind of problem, some kind of issue, or something that they want to know more about. 9 out of 10 cases, this is not your company. This is something that your company knows a lot about. So focus on the content that people want to see before you start talking about you, your service, or your product. Provide the value first before you ask them for anything. And finally, I've already pointed this out in the other column, but you should be continuing improving your lead nurturing flows. Now, let's look at a couple of ways that you can do lead nurturing in HubSpot. There's a ton of different tools that can help you in your lead nurturing strategy. Now, email is probably the most common one, but it's also the one that people often think about. There's so many different tools that can help you do effective lead nurturing that are very, very often overlooked. You can combine these with email because email is still such a powerful tool, but think about adding diversity to the way that you're nurturing. So just to give you a few examples, smart CTAs. I think these are so incredibly powerful. If a person comes to your website and sees a first CTA, this marketing strategy template, they're likely that they're going to be looking to start a marketing strategy, right? So if you know that they've downloaded this, you can follow up with a relevant offer. But if they've downloaded this in the past, they might still come back to the same page, but they probably won't be interested in the same offer because they have this marketing strategy template. Ideally, you make sure you send it by email to them as well. But what about now you can offer the next step so that we can make sure that once they've had their marketing strategy templates, maybe now they have a structure in place and they want to do some kind of assessment. This is a really useful way to ensure that there's always something relevant to your visitors when they come to your page. Ultimately, you want to make sure you offer the right thing to the right people at the right time. And that's not just email, it can be smart CTAs as well. This is another one, progressive profiling. The more you bring a contact through the journey, the more opportunities for gathering data you have. And progressive fields in forms do this really well, where if you've already asked for certain kind of information when someone's downloaded the first assessment, using these progressive fields can help you to make sure that the next time they download something, you're getting something else in return. You're giving value, they've already received value, so the next time you can ask something else that is interesting to you to help you qualify your leads and make sure you're sending the right leads over to sales. A/B testing. I am a massive fan of A/B testing because you can't believe the things that make a noticeable difference if you haven't seen them go through A/B tests. A/B testing will guide you on what's performing well and what could perform even better. So We have an example here of creating a version B of an email to find out which performs best. And we see here that we've picked what we want to be the thing that we look at. It could be click rate, it could be open rate, and it depends on where you are in your journey, which of these is the most interesting one. Remember one thing, the key rule in A/B testing is not to make a lot of changes at once. If you change a lot between email A and B and you get a result, that will not help you determine in the future what works and what doesn't work. By making small changes in A/B testing, you know what are the things that drive value for your prospects and the people that you're emailing. So one change at a time with A/B testing. Pop-up forms are a great way to capture attention. The content, of course, needs to be relevant, and you can use the sequence of follow-ups to develop even more of that engagement. But pop-ups work so well, and especially when you put them in the right way. Now, you don't want to put pop-ups everywhere, but what about if you look at your website and you look at the pages that are deemed to be converting pages, there's an option to pick pop-up and intent of exit. And this is a great way to make sure you're still capturing some of those people that maybe were about to leave because for some reason they couldn't finish all the content or they weren't going to convert in some other way. Now, last but not least, the usual top one choice for lead nurturing is email workflows. So we'll look into workflows a bit more because it's a more complex tool, but don't underestimate the power of the other tools that we've discussed so far. Let's look a little bit more at timing. I think timing in lead nurturing is really important and it's really hard to get it right. If we look at timing, we want to, of course, determine when do we start nurturing leads. This is usually after a lead has made some kind of action. It's always determined by the lead what they want to receive. So all we have to do as great marketers is make sure we give them the right content when they ask for it. So this could be after a first-time conversion. It could be that they've downloaded some kind of offer, subscribed to the blog. It could be that they've attended one of your in-person events or digital events. But even an abandoned purchase is a great time to start nurturing because you can see there was that intent and interest, and for some reason that didn't go through. One thing not to forget is nurturing for leads that have not interacted for a while. Re-engagement. A re-engagement campaign should be determined on have they not interacted for a while, but also where were they before they stopped interacting. If they've consumed certain content before, they might not be a good fit for your flow that starts from step one. If they've barely done anything, you would need to look at what did they come in for, what did I send them, and where did they drop off. Re-engagement campaigns are not a catch-all system, but they are a really valuable way to make sure that especially the high intent leads that you've had before, you can look back in and engaging with them and making sure that they still know you're there. Now, very often leads are unqualified. This happens, and there's a bunch of reasons why a lead may be unqualified. Company could be too big or too small. Maybe your solution is designed for SMBs, but you seem to be attracting a lot of enterprise leads. Now, while enterprise leads often have more budget to allocate, you simply can't sell what you can't support, right? So think about your own matrix and think about what makes a bad lead for you. And if you're not sure, especially as a marketer, what a bad lead is, talk to sales because they will be able to tell you what a bad lead is, right? It's so important to make sure to know what a good lead is so that you're nurturing the right leads at the right time and you're not putting a lot of time and effort into nurturing leads that are unqualified from the start or even sending those on to sales. Now, the main solution for unqualified leads is filtering. Don't waste any more of your time with leads that are bound to fail. Wasted time is wasted money. And if you're thinking, it's fine, we just have a workflow set up, so they're just getting the same emails, it's not taking any time, there's always a cost associated with a bad lead. And if it's bad lead that are going through your flows, it could very well hurt your email deliverability. If they're not opening your emails or not clicking your emails, over time, your email sending reputation and sending domain reputation go down, meaning email servers and email providers that receive them will over time deem your content as less important and of lesser quality, and you have a much likelier chance to get into the promotion folder in Gmail or even in spam. So even if you think I'm not wasting time, there's always a cost to nurturing bad leads. So think about, who am I nurturing, what am I nurturing them for, and what is the intentionality behind this? So I'm sure this is one of the things that a lot of people came here for, which is looking at the actual workflow logic. Now, let me start by the very essence of a nurturing workflow, right? Nurturing is about getting a prospect from A to B. You have your audience at A, and you're a few emails and tasks or follow-ups away from getting them to achieve your goal at B. In the end, it is as simple as get from A to B. Lead nurturing is showing them the road to getting where they need to be. So let's break this down and give this some relevant and concrete examples. Contacts who downloaded a kit, submitted a form, anything like that. You want to have a goal associated with this action. A workflow that doesn't have a goal isn't measurable, and there's no way of telling if it's a successful workflow or not. So in this case, we take one look at one of the parts of our entire strategy, and we say, point A is you've downloaded a kit. Point B, I want you to register for a webinar. This makes sense as a goal because we're starting with something that is a really low-touch situation, and registering for a webinar, as you've all done, is something that shows a lot of intent. There are certain things that you want to work on. Your formal goal could be, I would like 15 contacts to sign up to my webinar. It could be, I want a certain percentage to sign up. It's about making sure that you know and you can put in HubSpot what is the goal to my workflow, and then you can measure and you can divide what have I done well so that you learn for next time, or you optimize for the same flow if it's an ongoing one. So there's different workflows you can set up, right? So let's take a look at a few more examples. Maybe someone looks at pricing information. Happens all the time, and it is a really good indicator, usually, that someone's interested. You don't look at a price if there's no way you're interested in a product. It's great to use that as a point of reference to make sure if they're looking at pricing information, how do I get them to request a consultation, request a demo, a trial? That's a great goal to have because it's a logical next step from high interest to very high interest. Then we can use it for not just leads. Lead nurturing, despite the name, is one aspect of it. There's also customer nurturing. And especially if there's opportunity for upsell, growth, anything like that, we want to look at customers. For example, if we have customers at the 1 year mark, we want to get them to something like increased usage. Maybe we want to look at getting them to show interest in a certain upgrade or upsell. For example, in HubSpot, right? If you've been using some of HubSpot's products for a while, there's a good chance that initially when you're starting out, you're not using all the tools. That makes sense because no one starts the ground running with every single tool that they have in their package. By the time you get to year one, it would really make sense for me to say, I want to make sure that I'm seeing you use at least 10% more of the features or 20%, 50%. It's about making sure what is the right fit for you and your product, what's the right fit for the client, and how are we going to measure the effectiveness of our nurturing campaigns. Now, finally, one more, and I've already mentioned this briefly, re-engagement. You're always going to have stale leads because no matter how great you are at lead nurturing, things happen. Sometimes it's just not the right time, and sometimes people are just not interested, or it could happen for a number of things. Priorities changed, business budget cuts, Nan went to the hospital. You never know, but there's a number of reasons someone could drop out despite you having done everything right. It's always great to look at stale leads and find out if you can get them to re-engage. Maybe clicking a link to a resource article is a great way, because if you're sending these emails and they're clicking links, it's a really good sign that to see that they're still interested, because if they weren't, they wouldn't be opening the emails. And if they would open the emails, they wouldn't click ahead to see the next thing. So these are a couple of different workflows, but what I really, really want to value here is it's all a journey. It's all a process. Every workflow that you make becomes part of the overall cycle. It becomes part of the lead to customer journey. It becomes part of your customer journey. So great nurturing is always finding a relevant next step. For example, contacts who downloaded the kit, I want to nurture them to register to a webinar. Then when they've registered, and I'm sure Claire knows this really well, you want to send out some kind of email to show that people actually show up for this webinar. So once someone's registered, you want to do the next thing and nurture those registrants to become attendees. Then when people have attended a certain webinar, there's a good chance that you want them to take a different kind of action. Maybe requesting a consultation, a trial. It depends on you and your product, but it's logical for a webinar to have a next step. So in this case, it could be a consultation. And I'm sure that some of you looking at a great agency afterwards might have a look at Noisy Little Monkey, because they're great to work with. One thing that I want to mention here is personalization. Tailored emails are opened much, much, much more often than non-tailored emails. Now, it's about making sure that you have a personalized from name or reply to, so no reply emails. We've actually been working in HubSpot on things like reply rates, which if they're not live yet, they will be live soon. So reply rates would be really interesting. If someone replies to your email that you're nurturing them for something, it's very likely that they're very interested in something. So you want to make sure that you promote and you absolutely give way for those kind of replies. And again, this is also really good for your email sending reputation. So make sure you personalize and you make it as friendly as possible. Subject lines that are personalized have about a 30% higher open rate on average. I'm going to say that again. Subject lines that are personalized have about a 30% higher open rate on average. Now, that doesn't mean you can do it for every single one, because if every single email is, Stephen, we have an offer for you, which we get a ton of, after a while, it really drives you crazy. But it can be a really powerful tool for finding that one email that maybe in your flow hasn't been performing as well, and having a look at how can I make sure that that email is performing better. Or if this is a turning point from point A to point B, and this is a really important email for them to open and consume, this is when you want to make sure that you use that kind of personalization in your subject line. Make sure you use a personalized greeting. Make sure you use a sign off. These are standards. I don't need to explain these to you. So I want to show you a couple of different lead nurturing examples. So there's a couple of different things here, and specifically why I called these out is because of their CTAs. I think a powerful CTA is the driver of lead nurturing. Lead nurturing is about having someone perform an action. If the CTA is always the same, that doesn't work, right? The secret to effective lead nurturing is to collect as much information as you can about your leads and then use it to be relevant and interesting. Including call to action is a great way to collect these type of insights. Now, I'll say this, if you aren't sure about what CTA to include in your email, go back to step one, think about the goal of your campaign. Your CTA should almost always be related to the goal of your campaign in that essence. Make sure your campaign is not too long, make sure it's not too short, make sure that you can send CTAs that are relevant to that specific workflow. Couple of examples that I want to give. One of them is a reminder workflow, and I know this one is a little bit silly, but this one is actually the one that I've set up myself in my own portal because I am terrible at making sure I remember to do my taxes. I am not Jimmy Carr, I promise. So what I want to look at is what can we do as a reminder workflow? We can say we have a contact property taxes complete equal to no. Okay, every year I want to repeat this on April 17th, whatever date is relevant for you. And then I want to make sure that the reminder email gets sent out, maybe even 30 days before this date. Hey, Stephen, make sure you remember to do your taxes. A reminder workflow can be used in a number of different ways. So you can use this for yourself to make sure that there are certain actions you need to complete. But you can use this for things like webinars, consultations as well. Anything that has a fixed date would be really, really useful to make sure you have a reminder workflow for. It's hard to remember everything. We all have a lot going on. Remind your customers, remind yourself, and they're set up very easily and they provide great results. Abandoned carts or conversion nurture. Right? I've briefly mentioned this before, and I know not everyone has an automated checkout system. It depends as well if you're B2B or B2C. There might be a lot of exciting things coming up in the B2B area for making sure that you have easy ways to do payments online. It could be a lot of different things. It could be a registration form. It doesn't have to be specifically a cart. In this instance, Contact has visited exactly the registration form, but they haven't filled out the registration form. This works for your webinar. This works for most of your workflows. If they've been to the landing page but not completed the form, send them an email. Obviously, this only works if you already have an opt-in from them. You can send emails like this to contacts that have never given you this kind of permission, but it's a really, really useful way to make sure that people might have forgotten. They might have closed a tab, they might have gone and done something else, came back to it. Website might have crashed, computer might have crashed. Things happen. People don't complete things. Send them a reminder, send them one. If they're not interested, that's fine. Now, a really important one that I've already mentioned is a new customer nurture. It is so important to make sure that you have these kind of touch points with your customers, and you can do a really lovely blend between you reaching out yourself manually and automated content that you send your way. If we've successfully looked at the different kind of personas that we work with, we over time get to know what the different touch points are that certain personas want in their first year, their second year, etc. It'd be great for a simple congratulations, you're a new customer. It's even better to make sure that you're learning how to use tools, that you're learning how to use services, and that you're finding what the right ways to do things. Now, there's a few things that I want to say about this one as well. It's not just about setting a standard delay. So in this workflow, we can see, for example, that it says delay the next action for 3 days. And for your very first flow, that might make sense, right? You've signed up after 3 days, learn how to use your new tools. Bit late for me. I like to dive in myself immediately. But what about delay until a certain event happens? This is such an incredible, powerful tool. You could do something like, you've signed up, you get the new email, you get to learn how to use your tools. Delay until event happens, someone's actually opened the email, learn how to use your new tools. If they don't, you can set a standard, you can set a maximum duration. If they haven't opened it, send them a reminder. Say, hey, we noticed you still haven't used it. Here's the email again, or here's a more easy guide for you to look at. Set another delay until the event happens with a maximum amount of time. They still haven't opened that one. Maybe set up a notification for someone to reach out. Hey, you've purchased this, but I see you're not using it. Is there anything we can do to help you out? These are just a couple of different ways to look at nurturing, and there's so many different things, but I kind of want to leave it there for now and maybe look into any kind of questions or anything like that.
Thank you, Stephen. Can I get some thanks and some clapping emojis in the chat, please, everyone? I'll try and compensate. Can you hear that? Can you hear the round of applause? Thank you very much. And great timing as well, because you said originally this was an hour-long talk.
Yeah, I've had to cut out a few, but one thing I will mention is there is a great 1.5 hour lead nurturing academy course.
Oh,
So
cool.
if there's more you want to look into, 1.5 hours, so well worth the time.
Cool. Okay, I'll find the link for that and then include that in the sort of post-event wrap-up email with your slides and the recording of the talk as well, Stephen. That's really useful. You're getting lots of love in the chat from Sarah, Andy, Rashma. There's lots of applause. So yes, thank you for your time. Let's dig into the questions because I know that we had a few. My scroll isn't working. There we go. Cool. So Simeon had a great question actually, and it was about pop-ups. So Simeon says, how do we balance pop-ups, particularly ones like exit intent, whilst designing a customer-first experience? How can we avoid annoying users?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would make sure that you look at the intention that you have with a certain page. So, for example, you have certain articles, certain blogs, certain pages that you're making, and these are for your awareness consideration, your awareness phase specifically. You don't really want to use pop-ups for anything in your awareness phase because you haven't built that trust for that relationship yet. You want to make sure you use pop-ups once you've built a relationship and you're finding that there's a chance that people are disengaging for some reason or another.
That is a great tip. I'm just writing that down to go and remove all of the pop-ups off of Noise Little Monkey's website. Stephen, do you want to stop sharing your slides? Because then our faces will appear more, our beautiful faces will take up more of the screen. There we go. Cool. Thank you. Okay, Brill. We've got some other new questions as well. So quite a few from Rashma. So they've asked, at what point do I decide the contact needs to be added to a re-engagement campaign? So I suppose that's about understanding your sort of leads and where they are in the sort of the buyer's journey, I suppose. Stephen?
Yeah, it's really difficult to give a one size fits all answer for re-engagement because it really depends on, for example, the length of your lead to customer journey. The longer that is, the longer you want to leave it. There's certain companies that I work with that have cycles that could be years, right? In that case, you don't want to set, you haven't had an activity for 30 days, so here's the next content because you haven't done anything. As a rule of thumb, I would say look at no activity for maybe a month or something like that. If you have a really short sales cycle, it can definitely be a lot shorter than that, but it depends on your overall length of what are you doing and how often do you have touch points up until then.
The classic "it depends" answer.
It's just so dependent. I would say ask your agency, ask your CSM, because you need a tailored answer, I'm afraid.
Yeah, of course. No, that's we've we at Noise Little Monkey did some digging into that sort of stuff for ourselves, and we set up lead scoring, which was a really useful technique just to understand people's behavior and actions on the website, and then using that to inform whether to introduce them to a re-engagement campaign. So yeah, Rashma, if you need any additional help from an agency, hello, but also keep an eye out for the post-event email because I'll share some additional resources, which Stephen mentioned earlier as well. So hopefully that'll be helpful for you. Okie dokie, what else have we got? Oh, I'm going to selfishly ask one of my questions, which was around lead nurturing emails. So we've got various different lead nurturing email campaigns, which we have go out. And my boss loves the number 5. So what we tend to do is we tend to have a series of emails, typically 5 emails, which are sent to a contact depending on their interaction with those emails. Is there a sort of certain number of lead nurturing emails that you'd recommend to send, or is it another one of those it depends?
Yeah, it's really depends. Like I would usually say if you feel like you would need more than 5 emails to get someone there, it's very likely that you're taking too big of a step in one workflow. I would say over 5, there's a good chance that it should be split up into 2 different workflows that you want to look at. If it's less than 2 or 3, it's likely that the step is not big enough. These are a rule of thumb. So again, it's a it depends kind of answer, but I would say if it's 2 or less, probably not big enough. If it's more than 5, probably too big.
Yeah, like the nudge is too big to the next step.
If you're doing a webinar, for example, especially when there is a registration, there's certain kind of standard emails that you want to send out, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to get the confirmation that you've signed up. You want to, if it's far away, you might want to get it's a week from now, and you want to get hey, it's today in the actual morning. So
yeah,
depending on what you're flowing, there's a certain set of numbers, and I would say 5 if you're signing up for a webinar that's next week would drive
too many.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, thank you. We've got one here from Keisha, which sort of follows on from my lead nurturing email question, which is about time delays. So would you suggest a sort of set amount of time delays between each email? So in this example, say you downloaded a guide from someone's website.
Mhm.
Do you have a recommended time delay for those leads? I'm assuming this isn't just around when it gets sent, Keisha, but let us know in the chat.
Yeah, it really depends on what the content. I'm repeating myself very often.
No, not at all. Carry on.
It really depends on the content that someone's initially downloaded. If this is a one-pager, someone doesn't need 2 weeks to have looked at a one-pager. I've had a client that gave away a 40-page SEO guide. Hey, you know what? It took me a while to get through that. I would say, think about this reasonably. How much time would you need to spend to look at the content? And then think, if it's half an hour read, how likely is it that someone does that immediately versus a 2-minute read? If it's really short, someone looks at it immediately. I would usually go for maybe a 2 or 3 day delay. If it's a very large piece of content, give someone time to work through it, send something helpful that maybe helps them get through it. Or if it's really that big, maybe think about splitting up your content.
Oh, bro, that's great. Keisha said, yes, it's for the follow-up email. So I think we've answered that one. Thank you. That's a really good tip as well, just having the context of it. So Andy let me just take that one as answered. So Andy has asked a question, which is echoing Rashma's question about embedding. Oh, let's start with Rashma's question. Let's go up. Andy, I'm ignoring you. I work with Andy, so this is fine, everyone. I'm not bullying attendees. Okay, so we have a question from Rashma, which is, how do I determine whether a contact who just downloaded our content is qualified or unqualified to enter a workflow until we engage with them? Is there a way to figure that out?
It's a great question. Let me give you an example. So I worked with a biomedical company, and because they were doing very specific research in certain fields, they had a lot of students recommending more information. And all those students got into their flows, and while the content was interesting for them, it didn't help the company out at all. So it's about pre-qualifying questions to make sure you're sending the right content to the right people. If someone comes to you, it's usually because they found some kind of content that you're offering, right? Due to the inbound methodology, you've maybe set up a blog post that people have read, and at the end, they want to maybe get some kind of guide that you're offering. This is when you put in your form, and make sure that you keep your form earlier in the process as light as possible. But if there's one really good pre-qualifying question that you can ask so that they can get the content and that it will help you determine, what am I going to do with this contact? Go for it. Absolutely.
And then another follow-up one, but this one's actually about social media engagement.
Okay.
And they ask, how do I do lead nurturing in relation to social media engagement? How do I link that into a workflow?
Yeah, it's a really good question. There's a lot of limitations in the kind of engagements and API connections that you can set up from social media engagements. So it's really hard to automate social media engagements with email nurturing workflows. I would say it's really important to use your social media to carry out certain messages, and you can carry out certain messages to certain groups. So when you're making different kind of posts, you can use it with lists or anything like that to make sure that it's being targeted at certain people. I wouldn't do it fully automatically. I would make sure that you're setting certain lists, and maybe everyone that is in a certain workflow gets put into that static list, and then you can use that list to manually place your post to target at them.
Cool, nice. Right, and now we'll do Andy's question. Move this down so everyone can hear. Worth a wait, Andy, though, surely. So echoing Reshma's question about embedding other forms of engagement than email in a workflow, do you have any suggestions for cross-channel nurturing ideas?
Ooh, that's a great question.
It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one.
It is a tricky one, but one that we very often tend to forget is in person, attending, meeting, anything that doesn't have to do with you getting interface digitally. And I think by now we can slowly start doing that again. So it would be a great idea, for example, if you have your flow set up and you have your awareness, your consideration, and maybe your decision. If you feel like certain funnels are filling up more at certain times, it could be a great time to set up something in person that you invite this large group to make sure that there's something they can convert on. There's the social media that we've done in the last post, but one more thing that I really need to highlight is ads. I know it's not fully inbound. I used to be a Pinterest account manager, so I'm a little bit biased on the ads. But especially for your latest phase, your decision stage people, it's about reminding them who you are, what you are, so you're everywhere on their mind at that moment in time. Static list with ad retargeting on social, on Google, anything like that could be really helpful for your high value late stage users.
Nice. I like that. It's a good suggestion. Great suggestion.
It's about blending, you know?
We'll just blank that out of the recording where you mentioned the words ads. HubSpot will be like, no. Okay, cool. So I think we've gotten through all of our questions, and looks like we'll wrap up a bit early as well. So unless there's anything else, I'll just wait and see if anyone drops any other questions in the chat. Just want to say thank you again, Stephen, for your time and for joining us virtually for the HubSpot user group. Thank you very much. We'll do another one of these sessions before the end of the year. So when I send the follow-up email with the recording and the slides, do keep your eyes peeled for the next topic, everyone that's on this call now. And also, again, if you enjoyed this event, like I said, Noisy Little Monkey hosts a series of free webinars called Business as Unusual. And we also have another conference next month, which is both in person and online, which is called Digital Gaggle. So if you want to join us for that, just search for it online. Thank you once again, Stephen, for being a part of the hug. I'm going to do another round of applause for you. And if everyone could just drop some more thanks and rounds of applause and celebrations in the chat for Stephen, that would be great, because I'm sure it will pamper his ego. Yes, thank you, Andy, very much. Sarah, thank you. Josh, nice, loving the emojis. Great. Cool, very informative from Stephanie, so that's really helpful. Brill, thank you, Stephen. I'm going to stop this recording and